Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Wasta Distance Education and ENG4C. Well, I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving holiday break, got together with friends or family, and were able to give thanks and, and just enjoy each other's company. So today we are going to move on to a new activity. That's activity 4, simply titled Research on page 37 of unit number 3. We'll read over the brief introduction and then the success criteria. In this activity, you will review research strategies and begin to research an issue presented in the novel. That is the novel that you are reading right now. Um, You'll do this by brainstorming and developing research questions. Then you'll write the final post for your novel, reflecting on your reaction to the ending and by thinking about the overall theme or message. So we're just going to skip right over the learning goals here to look at the success criteria. You'll be successful when you can create a mind map that explores possible topics and subtopics for your research report. You will share your mind map with your peers. Well, in this case, we are unable to share with our peers to any successful degree for feedback, but you um, may be able to do that with some friends who are or family members that you can engage with about what you're reading, what the possible themes are from your novels. That is the messages, because generally the messages in these novels that we're reading revolve around some type of issue, some type of social issue. So, to help you along the way, you'll be successful when you can develop a variety of different types of research questions by using the Q chart. Now, we were introduced to the Q chart earlier on at the beginning of the course. We will look at it again in a different type of context and frame it differently. And then finally, there is a success criteria here dealing with a post of approximately 500 words with at least 3 specific examples from the text about the ending or the theme of the novel. So we'll deal with that later as far as the key question that we are going to address. The first one that we're going to look at today deals with mind mapping and laying out the possible topics or subtopics for your research report. So in our last class last week, we did go through this content section on page 38, preparing for the different steps in research. Step 1, preparing for research. Step 2, accessing resources. Step 3, processing the information. And then step 4, transferring your learning. We also looked at the audience who you will be writing for on page 39, the purpose of your research essay, and the format. So these are really important for you to read and establish right from the beginning. So for instance, the format, right? You need 1,000 words with at least 5 references. And following that, we have a template of our actual research report with the title page and then the following sections, how to set up the sections of the report. So we notice that all the sections are titled with in bold and uppercase and given an alphabetical uppercase denotation here. So A, capital A is summary, B is beginning research. So we are going through the stages of preparing our research report. C, the next step at the bottom of the page is the outline of the report we need to write. And then on the next page, on page 42, we have D, uppercase D, writing your rough draft. And I'm skimming down a few pages here to page 44. The next task then is editing and revising your rough draft, and that's uppercase E. And then uppercase F section, writing the good copy. Okay, so some of these sections are broken down further. All right, so I'm scrolling back to section B here. We have Roman numerals here. Beginning research. All the steps or questions that we have to answer while we are looking for relevant sources. So step 1, Roman numeral 1 is this a reliable source? Roman numeral 2, does this information answer one of my research questions? If not, should I create a new question? Okay, so we try to remain flexible at all times and adapt our questions to find some kind of logical connection between our different sections. I'll explain that in more depth in a bit here. Is this information relevant concerning my audience and purpose, which we gave you just a couple of minutes ago as part of this table here on page 39, where it outlines our task. Okay, so this is an example of an outline of a report following here on page 41 and 52. So for the outline of the report, notice that it has the same uppercase letters here for the different sections that we do in our example. So this is how we would break down a report here with a summary. Of course, we start off with a summary. This is APA style. You either have a summary or an abstract. Abstract is very similar to a summary. It basically gives us a detailed, I don't know, a very general, I shouldn't say detailed, very general look at what is in the essay. So this is just an example here. So in our second section, we, or the author here, has chosen to title it Portrayal of Crystal Meth Use in Crank. So Crank is one of the books that we didn't use in this course, um, but it's about, of course, one of the social issues that are or is touched on in the book is the crystal meth use. Um, and so for this particular section, you would want to summarize the way crystal meth is portrayed in Crank, evaluate how realistic it is based on your research. Okay, so you would um, uh, obviously in this book, there's a lot of use of crystal meth um, and shows it portrays the social costs and the social problems associated with it. Um, now, once again, remember these books are all fiction, right? So, um, uh, how realistic is this based on your research? So, you haven't done any research right now, okay? So, but you will be. The idea here is that the author of this particular report is going to now go and search for information on uh, the use of crystal meth and how it affects society. And there is probably lots of literature on that. Then in section C here, the author wants to explain what is crystal meth exactly. So sorry, I should step back here. I missed something very important. So this in part B here, this is the place where you connect this social issue to the use of this drug in the novel that you read. Okay, summarize the way crystal meth is portrayed in Crank. Okay, so summarize, you would explain, um, the situation, some of the situations that happen in the book and some of the results, some of the horrible things that might have happened as a result of people using this stuff. And you summarize it. You generally you have a narrator and they are up to their armpits in alligators or in these specific drugs, in this case, crystal meth. And if they're using it themselves, they go through some kind of um, short story, or not short, but some kind of story type of um, relationship with this drug where it's man versus the drug, for instance, the man versus the effects of the drug, right? Until the things just keep getting worse and worse and worse until there's a crisis, and then there's a resolution. So you can summarize it like that, like you would a regular story. And then step 3, of course, is, well, what is crystal meth anyways? Most people don't know what it is and why it's so dangerous. you can explain in section C these things. Um, and then in section D, symptoms and warning signs, describe symptoms and warning signs of crystal meth use. So remember, you are producing this research report for your peers, right? So they're your friends. And so you are letting them know what are the symptoms. And once again, you can research all of this. There's just tons of documents on symptoms and warning signs. And then finally, um, how to get help. You can give some examples of how your friends or people your age can get help if they're addicted or if a friend is addicted. And you can provide local sources there that are available. So you're laying out this, connecting your novel to this social issue of drug use, drug abuse, and explaining what the thing is in the first place and what are the symptoms and warning signs, and then a way to get help. You can see this is a very useful document to share with your friends. And then, okay, so we have the example here of how we can pull it right out of the text. You can actually use this format as a template for your own research essay. We'll need to include an actual graphic in our document. Now that graphic can go just about anywhere. It could go in any of these different topic areas. You might put it in symptoms and warning signs or how to get help, right? You might be able to find some graphics that show symptoms or warning signs or even the number of people who are affected by crystal meth use. Maybe their age groups or any number of different indicators or categories of people that are affected by, in this particular example, this will be crystal meth use, but it could be, you could replace crystal meth with just about any other drug. Fentanyl, the portrayal of fentanyl use, or there's other social issues that are discussed in the books as well. There's all kinds of racism in the different novels. So if it isn't drug related, it could be a racial issue. Okay, so continuing on here, editing and revising your rough draft. The steps you go through to make sure that your rough draft is edited and revised properly. So we're going to answer these questions right here. Does the content of the report do what it sets out to do? Is it helpful and informative? So this goes back to the purpose of your research report. And once again, it's all laid out exactly. And I'm just skimming back to remind you to check back your purpose to inform the reader about a particular issue based on research from reliable sources. That's the purpose. Okay. Right. Is the level of language appropriate? Do you have any spelling or grammatical errors? So you may need to well, you'll have to do some revision because when you read some of these documents, they may be in a fairly academic and highly academic and technical language. And you need to bring it down to a level that your peers will understand what you're writing about. Have I cited all my sources? Have I included a reference page? Now, I'll show you examples of all of this, but we have done this right at the beginning of the course, citing sources, reference page as well. Showed you examples of that. Does the format follow the format provided? And that's what we're looking at right now, the actual format of the essay done in APA style with a summary broken down into sections. And then, of course, with our references page and a title page. Do headings, subheadings, and graphics help to make the information clear? Okay, so the graphic needs to be relate directly to your content in a particular section, right? You can't just throw in any graphic in there and say, well, there, I filled that specific expectation of the essay. No, it has to actually refer directly to specific content that you are writing about. How do you get those subheadings? Well, you can do, copy and paste for one thing. No, not subheadings. Sorry, the actual graphics. You can do cut and paste. You can also make, if you have a Windows operating system, you can take a screenshot of a graphic and then import it into a Word document. All right. So here's some questions on page 45 to make sure that you have a fairly a good understanding of a report and a research report and how it is organized. So, how is the report organized? On the next page, the report is organized using headings, which are lettered A, B, C, etc. That's the main headings. But remember, if we are doing subheadings, they can follow a different format, such as using Roman numerals. How does the writer distinguish between headings and the rest of the text of the report? The writer distinguishes between headings and the rest of the report by lettering the headings and making the font bold to draw the reader's attention. Like the memo, text features should be used to make it faster and easier for the reader to identify the information he or she needs to make a decision. Number 3, what information is provided in the summary? The summary briefly identifies the main ideas in the report and the order in which these ideas will be presented. The reader should know exactly what to expect from the report from reading the summary. Describe the voice used in the report. On the next page, once again, the voice of the report is businesslike, factual, and concise. The writer presents the information but does not offer personal opinions about the subject matter. And that's the whole thing about research reports, right? I mean, we value our personal opinions, and in an indirect way, they do get written into any um, any type of report that we ever write, because we are deciding what we're going to write about, and that's part of our personal opinion. But that's about as far as it goes. After that, we are we're looking for information that has some sort of factual backing behind it. And that's why we are using research and references to actual, maybe like a study, or statements that are made in professional organizations. We'll have some examples of that coming up, okay? Um, how does the writer indicate he or she has used external sources? In this report, sources are cited using the APA format anytime the writer is making reference to ideas that he or she did not come up with. A parenthetical citation appears, like our example here in parentheses, Wardlick, comma, that's the author, 2010. When you look at the end of the report, you will see a references page that contains the full citation for the source. In your report, you must have at least 5 different sources cited. The purpose of the table in section D is to illustrate the different types of graphics a student can use in a report and identify the purpose of each type of graphic. Okay, so we did go through all of that in a previous class, comparing, tables, different types of tables, to pie charts, for instance. When would we use one over the other? Which one is more effective to present a certain type of information? Are you comparing information, right? These are all thoughts that we might have when we are deciding on what type of graphic we want to use and find. So a lot of the research that you will be looking for will have some kind of graphics already associated with it. You just have to pick the best one to highlight certain information on your own report. Okay, let's see. I am on the bottom of page 46 right now. So now, hopefully you know your task, and you will need now to start brainstorming possible topics for your research report. So we did give you some examples with the crystal meth one. Look at, or have a look at the mind map on the next page created for a potential research report on relationship violence. So here's another possible example, possible social issue that you can talk about in your research report, right? Not just drugs, but relationship violence, for instance. Notice how the student branches off from major topics, warning signs, support, to consider subtopics. You may not explore all of these ideas in your research report, but it will give you a good idea of what kinds of research questions you should be asking. All right, so this is really important that, and it's a very important or very critical part of the thinking process here is thinking out these subtitles. Now, they're probably, depending on what information you get, they're probably going to be different from the examples that we showed you with the meth breakdown from that novel called Crank. So here's how one student has broken down relationship violence, right? So the main topics that they have so far, or that they selected, are warning signs, right? These are the first level of the spokes coming from the main topic area here. Warning signs, risk factors, statistics, effects, and support. So those are the main topic areas. So they might be the main capitalized, bolded sections of your report in this example. So you might further want to break down these different sections into, well, let's look at, for example, warning signs. We have physical signs, right? So relationship violence, you might see like bruises from being hit, right? Or scars or things like that. We have behavioral signs like maybe somebody's not getting any sleep, they're nervous, they got the shakes, right? There's all kinds of different physical and behavioral signs that you can find out through research. So you may ask a question here. What are the behavioral signs that demonstrate relationship violence? Or what are the physical signs? Right, so you have these questions, and these questions will help you direct your research. Let's look at risk factors. So what are the risk factors for the victim? Right, see how I'm breaking down the topics into subtopics now? Is there any correlation or connection between social economic status and the chances of or increasing the risks of relationship violence? So I'm asking another question here that I can do a search on Google using those specific terms, right? Does relationship violence lead to, or is it caused by substance abuse? So we're focusing now more on the person who's abusing and not on the victim. So you can see how these questions can get developed here. We'll just do one more. What are the effects of relationship violence on a victim's self-esteem? See how I've gone down this step by step through the spokes of this mind map here. I've gone from relationship violence to affects the victim to the self-esteem. And I'm asking a question. And this is when I put that question into Google, it will be able to find me specific information on that I can use as my sources of information in the essay. So once you've done the brainstorming, you'll want to develop a more focused plan for your research. It will be helpful to figure out what you already know about the topic. Your You've already been introduced to a cue chart as a method to help you ask questions about your novel, but now you're going to use it to help you develop research questions. For example, using the cue chart to develop research questions on relationship violence, a student might come up with the following questions. And here are some questions similar to the ones I just kind of worked through there. Who are the victims of relationship violence? Is it mostly male or female? Is it children? Or is it elders and seniors? What are the organizations that are available to help victims? A lot of people aren't familiar with the different organizations in our area to help victims. So those would be great to include in there, and you can actually probably find a lot of information that you're looking for in those organizations. They all have websites. Number 3, why do some victims stay in abusive relationships? Many times people stay in even though they're getting beat up, but they're afraid to leave, right? But once again, there are statistics on this, and you might be able to find them in these organization websites or in government publications. How should a friend or family member approach the topic of abuse with the victim or the abuser? Well, this is real helpful information on the personal, local level, right? I mean, this is where some kind of approach to helping disarm the situation begins right at this kind of level with a family or friend or family member. A lot of these organizations, they don't, they're detached from you until you come and ask for help. They're not coming into your home, but it's your friend or family member who can get the ball rolling and help start it. So once again, here's our cue chart with all of the different options here, right? So, we have our factual information, and we can ask ourselves very specific questions when we're looking for factual information. But the other 3 boxes here, prediction, analytical, and synthesis and application, require different types of questions. So for prediction, right? So you're predicting something in the future. You don't know what the answer is going to be. Like, who should notify the authorities? Who might, and see over here I have these verbs here. Who could have helped in this situation, or who might help in this situation? These are all predictive type of questions. And then we have a more analytical series of questions. Why? Did the victim of this abuse behave like this? Why do people try to hide from social issues? Why is it easier just to turn your head the other way? And then synthesis and application are the most complex type of questions. How could I help? By asking that question, you have to know or teach yourself what are the options. This is the synthesis part. So you have some information, but you have to apply it into a real life situation. So, examples here. Asking good research questions. So, what we call lower order research questions on page 49. Some questions are designed to help you find and understand basic information. To get the facts straight, they help you understand the topic more thoroughly. This type of question is essential for understanding your topic. Higher order research questions, like the synthesis and application. Some questions help you take apart the information that you found, explore different aspects of the problem, see varying points of view, and develop your own opinions. Exploring these critical thinking questions will take your research to the next level. So here's how it works. As you move down the chart, the type of questions move from lower order, essential basic understanding, to higher order questions. So type of question, knowledge base, identifying, recalling information. Um, Here's our verbs that we would use: describe, identify, outline, recognize, or state. Here's an example here of what countries were allies of Britain during World War II. We can find that as factual information. Then we have comprehensive type of questions: organizing, selecting, and understanding facts and ideas. So some of the verbs that you might use are explain, define, and summarize. Here's an example. What were the main causes of World War II? Okay, so generally when we're looking for causes of World War II, there's huge volumes available on what were the causes. There was some guy assassinated somewhere. Or was that World War One? Yeah, that was World War One. But World War One was one of the causes of World War Two. That was one example, and there's a lot written on that. But if you can just summarize that, um, also the Germany felt like it got ripped off by the other European states. They were probably being treated pretty bad because of it. And there's another reason, and there's probably lots written on that. Application is the next type of question: applying known facts, rules, and principles to new situations. We use the compare contrast model to demonstrate. So here's an example. How did Hitler demonstrate the qualities of a dictator? Okay, so we might find an article directly pointing to that. Um, the dictator-like qualities of Adolf Hitler. And then we get into the higher order questions: analysis, taking information apart to understand it more deeply. Verbs that we use are analyze, interpret, infer. Um, why did people follow Hitler so readily? Something that we have a hard time understanding, realizing how did that guy get into power in the first place? And we just, there's no inherently evil group of people. I mean, the Germans are just like everyone else, right? How did he convince them, the German people, that, hey, we should start killing Jews and we should start invading the rest of Europe? So Another higher order question is synthesis. That is bringing different ideas together to create new ideas. Create, predict, design, develop, devise, and solve. This is a real difficult one, right? If we're not used to being that creative and applying synthesis to ideas, but it's just like, let's say if you got a problem in your community, right? And then you go out on the internet and you're looking for ideas that are roughly associated with what you're experiencing in your community. Let's say you go to um, British Columbia website or a New Zealand website or Australian website, and you see how people are dealing with that situation in that you are researching that's happening in your community, and then you think about how I can apply what these people are doing way over there to my own community. So that's an idea of synthesis. Because it's going to be somewhat the same, but a little bit different. And then finally, evaluation, making judgments, forming and defending opinions. So for that, you evaluate. These are the verbs you use: evaluate, defend, judge, assess, validate, and critique. Our example here is, was Canada justified in entering World War II? Now, most people would say, yes, it was. But sometimes people would say, no, it wasn't justified. There was a lot of conscientious objectors, right, who didn't go over and fight in World War II. They were religious, mostly religious based. You know, people didn't want to, they couldn't think of themselves going over and killing another person, whether they were in the army or justified for doing it or not. Um, they just couldn't bring themselves to do it. So there's always two sides of the coin you have to examine. It's great or good to examine both sides of the coin, right? So that you understand what other people's positions are. It's like what's happening over in Palestine right now. Horrible thing, right? Um, the governing body of the Palestinian people attacked Israel and killed a whole bunch of people. And then Israel is attacked them back. And there's horrible things are happening over there, right? I mean, is there a right or a wrong? We don't know. From different perspectives, they all believe that they're doing the right thing, killing someone else, but we don't know. But we need to evaluate. And by evaluating, we have to look at evidence, right, from our knowledge and comprehensive sections. All right, so let's finish up here with giving you a key question, the brainstorming key question on page 50. Key question 29. Choose one of the issues presented in your novel that you think is an issue facing some people in our society today. For example, racism, poverty, violence, substance abuse, and depression are examples of issues. And all of those are covered in many of the novels that we have offered you. Complete a brainstorming map for your topic and share it with your teacher for feedback. Okay, so we did go over that brainstorming topic earlier and how you can lay that out, break it down into sections and subsections. There are numerous issues in the novels that you have read which may be researched for this essay. Here are a few topics for you to reflect on. They are here on page 50. Have a look at them. Topic suicide, How can suicide be prevented? What are the causes of teen suicide? Now, I don't have time to go through them all, but the other topics I have here are racism and drug abuse. Have a look at those. They may stir up some ideas that you can get started on the research part of your essay.